Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, July the 11th, 2020. It is currently 9:28 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in Ovalo, Texas. But even though I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church here in Ovalo, Texas, we're not going to stay here in Ovalo, Texas. No, we're simply meeting here. Well, we're meeting here so that we can start another road trip. Yes, it is time for us to take another virtual road trip so that we can go visit one of the most influential churches in the United States of America. Now, if you're new to this series, you need to go back and listen to all of them, because what we have been doing is we have been meeting and then getting in a virtual car, a virtual airplane, and, well, taking a trip to go attend a service at one of the most influential churches in America, to listen to a sermon, to see how they're doing things, what they are teaching. It kind of gives us an idea of what's happening in Christianity. I thought this would be something fun to do. I've enjoyed myself. I think others, the feedback's kind of been mixed. Some like it, some don't. But you know what? I have the microphone, so I'm going to do what I want to do. All right. So that's probably not a good idea. When you get mixed results, you probably should just stop and go do something else. But I'm not very good at always listening to what people tell me to do. So I think it's a good idea because, look, here's the thing. You can look at Christianity and you can have a certain perception about what you think is going on in Christianity, what you think is happening. But the only way to really know what's going on in Christianity is to go listen to what's being preached from pulpits, to go and look and see what's happening in churches, seeing what they believe, what they teach. And you've got to do more than just looking at what they claim. You can go to every church website and look up a doctrinal statement and go, look. But in many cases, those doctrinal statements really have no significance from what's being preached from the pulpit. In fact, you don't even really hear what's in those doctrinal statements being preached from many pulpits. So I think it's always interesting at different times to stop and go, let's go visit these churches and let's see what's happening. Let's kind of get an idea. Now, this is not obviously a scientific study to be 100% dogmatic about what's going on in Christianity, but I think it's a fun, interesting way to do so. And I kind of like doing this because it really it's always a little nerve-wracking, because if you don't know how I do this, I've made a list of 25 influential churches, the 25 most influential churches based on a number of different sources saying, hey, if you're looking for the influential churches in the world right now, here are the churches to look to. All right. So I compiled a list of 25. Then what I'm doing is I'm going and grabbing the most recent sermon, just randomly grabbing the sermon, queuing it up. I'll look up a little bit of information, look at their website, try to make sure I kind of have an idea of what's happening. And then I queue it up, and then we virtually go take a trip there. And I always kind of describe it like we're meeting in the parking lot, and then we get ready to walk into the building, and we're going to listen to the sermon, and then we'll walk out and discuss it. But what's kind of nerve-wracking about it is I don't know what's going to happen because I don't listen to the sermon prior to going live. And so it's always nerve-wracking because I'm like, okay, here we go. Hit play. Oh, I hope they say something that I can comment on. I hope this takes a specific direction. And it's a very nerve-wracking because I don't know what's going to happen. But that's the way it would be. If we took an actual road trip, we would be meeting in the parking lot. We would all be walking in together, not knowing what to expect. And then we would walk out and then discuss it. So this is just happening in real time. I'm always afraid that I'm going to just kind of be sitting here going, well, I don't really know what to say. Okay, that was fun. Thanks for tagging along. Have a good day. Bye. Now, so far that hasn't happened. Obviously, every time I've had plenty to say. However, on the Non-Catholic Catholic podcast, I've been listening and reviewing Catholic homilies. And let me tell you, that is a challenge because some of them I've been sitting there going, really? I don't really know what to say because they didn't really say anything of significance. that is a difficult position to be in when you're live on the air. But yes, that's why I'm enjoying this. It's a little nerve-wracking, but it also gets the adrenaline going and gets my mind thinking, okay, now what am I going to say here? What am I going to say here? And hopefully, look, I'm doing all the work for you. You want to know what's happening in Christianity? You just listen to this series and you kind of find out. I'm taking you on a virtual road trip, and you don't even have to leave your house. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just sit right there and I'll take you. So are you ready for today's virtual road trip? Well, for this one, I'm going to have to get in my virtual airplane because this would be a long drive. Okay. We're going to be going to, where is it? Burlington, Washington. And we're going to go to Christ the King Community Church. Christ the King Community Church located in Burlington, Washington. Now, the previous pastor, his name was Dave Browning. He's he's definitely not the pastor anymore. And the reason why is kind of very, very sad. I think I have the story here. Yes. Burlington pastor Dave Browning dies. Family and colleagues of Dave Browning said he was the embodiment of grace, also willing to give others the benefit of the doubt and help in times of need. The longtime pastor at Christ the King Church in Burlington, who had been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor earlier this year, died Friday at the age of 52. Now, this happened a few years ago. I think the article about his death was published September the 6th, 2017. However, if you look at many lists of the most influential churches that were published way after that, they still have Dave Browning listed as the pastor, but obviously he is not the pastor anymore. And that's just another piece of evidence demonstrating that you can be a pastor, you can be a Christian, and guess what? You're still going to face pain, suffering, sickness, disease, and death. Christianity does not make you immune to those things. Those things are a part of our earthly existence. So Pastor Dave Browning is no longer the pastor. He's still listed. In fact, I'm looking at an article right here of the most influential churches, and they have him listed. So I don't know why that's the case, but he's definitely, obviously not the pastor there anymore. The current pastors, this is interesting. I'm at the church's website. Again, the name of the church is Christ the King Community Church. If you go to their website, they have a team of, they got four, I guess you would call it four pastors, I guess is how you would describe this. And here's the reason why. Okay. I went under their leadership, and it says pastors and staff. Here's the first one. Dane Boffey, Boffey, Dane Boffey, and his wife, Jess, service pastor. So is that saying that Dane Boffey and his wife are pastors? That's the way I'm reading it, because typically for the pastor, you would just have the one person. So I guess Dane Boffey and his wife are both pastors. And then Rick Snodgrass and his wife, Patty, lead pastor. So it says service pastor. Oh, the first one, Dave Boffey and his wife, Jess, service pastor. They don't say service pastors. And then Rick Snodgrass and his wife, Patty, lead pastor. They don't say lead pastors. So I don't really know how that works. I don't know why are the wife listed just to show that they have wives? Are they listed so that the wives can get some kind of recognition? Is this some kind of claim that, hey, a person can't be a pastor without the support of the wife? I don't know. It's just interesting. Dane Boffey and his wife, Jess, service pastor. Rick Snodgrass and his wife, Patty, lead pastor. Well, if both of them are the pastor, they would be pastors. I don't know. So I think that's interesting. So Rick Snodgrass, I guess technically he's the lead pastor with his wife. I don't know. So there you have it, which, of course, that brings up some doctrinal issues. But there you have it. Another interesting thing, and I probably didn't catch on to this early on in this series. If we go back and look at all the churches that are listed, remember we so far I don't think we've seen anything less than 6 of a weekly attendance. I don't think we've seen anything less than 16,000, like 500, 16,600. And that's how they're described. I haven't really paid attention to those numbers other than, whoa, those are a lot of people attending weekly. And I didn't really think about it. I was just like, hey, that's a lot of people attending weekly. And I kind of described it as, all those people are walking into that one building on that particular, weekend, that particular Sunday. But when I got to this church, I started realizing, wait a minute, that's not how these numbers are being recorded. And let me explain. All right, I thought I was getting ready to sneeze there. All right, I apologize. All right, here we go. This is what kind of caught my attention. All right, Christ the King Community Church, the church we're about to go visit in Burlington, Washington. And I've given you the name of the pastors. Their average weekly attendance is 17,000 people. Well, I was like, okay, well, where is Burlington, Washington? Well, I looked up Burlington, Washington, and as of a few years ago, the town, the city, only has a population of around 8,000 to 10,000 people. So I'm like, well, wait a minute, how can they have a weekly attendance of 17,000 if there's not even so everyone in that town plus the surrounding area goes to that church? Well, then I saw the building and I'm like, well, that building is not that big. So how does this work? This is what seems to be the case. And I know this is more popular. I mean, it's so popular, I should have realized this. What happens is you have one of these, I guess you call them, a mega church, where you have a pastor who becomes well-known, becomes somewhat a celebrity or famous. And so what you do, you have your central location, and then you build satellite locations. And in many cases, those satellite locations are simply watching basically a video feed of what's happening at the central location. And so because all of those people are attending, then the main church gets those numbers, right? Because they're all kind of, in a sense, attending via a satellite feed. I guess in some cases you have multiple, they like to call them campuses or locations, satellite locations. Those other churches may be doing something, but I guess the main church gets the numbers. Like when I see a weekly attendance of 17,000, I'm not getting a breakdown of exactly how that's being counted. So it would be interesting to note. Now, obviously, some of these mega churches, you see the thousands and thousands and thousands of people in one large location. But in this one, it didn't seem that super large. And I was like, well, how do you get 17,000? So it has to be because they're counting the numbers from different locations. And this is a description. So Christ the King Community Church, Burlington, Washington. I've given you the name of the pastors. Their average weekly attendance is 17,000 people. That's a lot. Their denomination is independent, non-denominational. That's been the theme. All of these influential churches are independent and non-denominational. Independent, non-denominational. We're seeing definitely a trend there. This is a description of this church. It is the biggest mega church based in the Pacific Northwest. Christ the King Community Church has more than a dozen locations from Washington to Florida. Well, there's how you're going to get your 17,000. You have more than a dozen locations from Washington to Florida, and obviously all those numbers are being pulled together to count as one. All right, so that makes sense. The church's cite at its core values simplicity, authenticity, community, empowerment, entrepreneurial spirit, that's interesting, truth, and grace. Its stated priorities are worship, community, outreach, and discipleship, aiming to reach the unchurched and transform the spiritual landscape of the community. Now that's what I like to talk is just a lot of that's mega church-ese. That's just the kind of language that churches speak today. Their core values are simplicity, authenticity, community. I mean, man, that community word is such a buzzword now. If I hear it again, I just get tired. Like everyone's got to use this language. Empowerment. I don't get the entrepreneurial spirit. And then truth and grace. Truth does show up at its core value close to the end. I guess their most important ones are simplicity, authenticity, and community. Their priorities are worship. That's good. Community, outreach, discipleship shows up closer to the end. Okay. So I'm not saying that proves anything, but that kind of gives me some ideas there. But 17,000 people, more than a dozen locations from Washington to Florida, Christ the King Community Church. So you have one major church, you do all of these satellite locations from around the world. I don't know if those satellite locations, how they operate, I don't know, but their numbers obviously count to the one. And so you have 17,000 people attending. Influential. Burlington, Washington. Again, let me give you the name of the pastor or pastors, Dane Boffey and Rick Snodgrass. There you go. And their wives are listed as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a trip. I'm going to have to fly there. You may live close so you can drive. I'm going to have to fly. We'll meet in the parking lot and we're going to go in. But before we go in, according to their website, there's something we need to watch before we go to church. Before we go to their church, there's a video we need to watch. It's 6 minutes long. So we're gonna listen to this video. They say we need to watch it, but we're gonna listen to it. And I just thought it would be interesting to see why. I'm assuming it has to deal with COVID-19, and if it does, that'll be interesting because it is also kind of I won't say neat. I think it's informative right now to look at how different churches are approaching the subject of COVID-19. You kind of get you can kind of start taking churches and group them into different categories. You got I'll call them the paranoid group that they're thinking, look, this whole COVID-19 situation, we're being set up. They're going to come in, they're going to take our Bibles, they're going to take our freedoms, they're going to take our hymn books, they're going to take our pulpits, they're going to close churches down, and we're all going to, this is the beginning of persecution. So you kind of have the paranoid group. You have the more conspiratorial group that this is a conspiracy created by China and the liberal Democrats to destroy Trump. You kind of have the conspiratorial thinking this was created in a bio lab to destroy us. And then the vaccine's going to have microchips, and we're going to be microchipped through these vaccines, or the vaccines are going to be used to reduce the population of the earth. Okay, so you have the more conspiratorial way. So you have the kind of the paranoid, the conspiratorial, clearly those kind of link. You have a very political way. Hey, we're not going to wear masks. We're not going to shut down. We're not going to social distance. We're not going to follow any of the rules because we're going to make a political point. And we stand with Trump, so a political side. And then you have a whole lot of churches going, we're just trying to figure out what to do, how to keep people safe, how we can still do church, but trying to protect people, trying to be a good witness to the community, trying to protect the lives of the people in the church, trying to protect the people in the community, trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to figure it out. So there's a lot of different approaches right now within Christianity, and when you go from church website to church website and you listen to sermon after sermon, you start kind of seeing these little groups form and going, oh, that church is in that group. And sadly, that's disappointing. Sadly, it's frustrating because you would think Christians could be possibly, unified when it comes to a global pandemic. You think we could be possibly unified in that message, but we can't even be unified in that, which is embarrassing and to me, very telling, all right, because it means sometimes pastors and churches want to be the story instead of the story being there's a pandemic and people are dying. That should be the story, and we should have a biblical response to suffering and death and disease. You would think, but maybe maybe once again I'm being naive. No, we know I'm very cynical. Clearly, we should have expected that. But here we go. Let's listen to this. This is what they say we need to watch before we attend church. So this is what we'll do. We'll imagine that we got to the airport or, however we got there. We're in the parking lot of Christ the Community Church here in Burlington, Washington. And they're telling us before we go in, we got to watch this video. So we'll pull up an iPad or someone's phone and we'll watch this video. Here we go. Let's see what we learn here. Here we go.
In a minute, you're going to look at a video that I think is one of the most important videos maybe I've ever done, especially in times like this. But things are so fluid that the video I did yesterday that you're about to watch actually needs to be changed a tad bit because of how fluid things are with the COVID virus. We just found out from government officials that the COVID virus has spiked in Skagit County. And if you fantasize about what church would be like, where we all leave and find out somebody got it there, that would be disastrous. So we are going to wear masks this Sunday. If that is troublesome to you for any reason, listen to what I have to say next, because I think it's more important than whether we cover our faces or not. I have been anticipating this video and sending this to you for weeks. And here's the news, and you need to listen very carefully. We are not opening the church. That's right. We are not opening the church. And I'll tell you why. Hang in with me. It's because we never closed the church. You can't close the church. In fact, I would dare say the church has been in a better place being the church under your roof than it's probably been in a long, long time. So we never closed the church. Now we closed the building, but we did not close the church. So I want to tell you that today, as I'm inviting you to come into the building, I want to invite you to bring your best church. Because you know, at your church, there was noise and phones rang and kids running around and people got up and had to go to the restroom, or you went and got another cup of coffee, or in the middle of worship, or something happened that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. You had different preferences in how church should be and opinions on how church should be, and you were entitled to do church in a certain way into your roof in your house, but stuff just happens, right? And it doesn't even look the same. But somehow God broke through all of that and you got to do good church. Well, in this house now, the big house here at 1000 Fountain in Burlington, I want you to know that things aren't going to be just right. They're just not. Some people are going to want more safety and sanitation. Other people are going to want less and think it's ridiculous that we've done anything. But I want to tell you, we have worked very, very hard at being as responsible as we can possibly be in having the entire place sanitized, having sanitation stations, getting our offering done in a different way if you don't do it online, which is obviously our preference. But we've got offering boxes, so we're not passing buckets. We've changed seating around. Some people will be wearing masks. So here's my invitation. It's so, so important. And this is what's been on my heart forever. Bring your good church here. Here's what good church is. Good church is coming to be with God and his people. Not minimizing something or maximizing something. Not being in a COVID conversation or a race conversation or a politics conversation. Taking 1 hour and allowing this building to blossom into a sanctuary, a safe place, so that we can just level the playing field before God and show up as his people. When everybody 3 times a year went to the big God party and they made the ascent into the holy city, into Jerusalem, when they got to the gates and walked in, they were so excited because of God. I'm asking you to pray and prepare to be so excited because of God. That means that when you walk in, you're honoring and careful about how people want to be greeted. So you can say, how are you doing greeting in these seasons, you know? Some are going to do the bump, some are going to go, I'm in a hug, and others, really, I'm not, so I'll do a virtual hug. Just be honoring so we're not rolling eyes or making something stupid or uncomfortable, because it can very easily slip out of sanctuary, out of being the safe place. We want to make it a safe place. If you're feeling sick of any kind, sickness of any kind shouldn't come to church anyway, so hopefully this isn't new news, but if you have any symptoms of anything, stay home. If you are compromised, probably better for a while to stay home. If you're thinking, I would have done this entirely, different. I would have had so many more things in place and cut out so many different things, and I don't think that Christ the King has done it the way I would do it. Stay at home, because you can watch the 9:45 live stream. We want to come and sing a new song before the Lord. We want to come and celebrate and not let entitlements, opinions, the preferences that we've come to enjoy become more important than God. So please, prepare your heart. If you can't get there, hang back at home, okay? It's that important. So we're looking forward to seeing you and being with you, and that's because together, being with God can be a beautiful thing. See you Sunday.
Now that, from a pastor's perspective, as a pastor, I can kind of hear the words beneath the words, and basically what he's trying to say is, hey guys, can we just stop complaining and arguing and just show up and do church and lay aside all of this other nonsense and all of these things that are dividing and everyone's arguing about? Trust me, there are plenty of churches right now who keep having meetings about what to do about COVID-19, and those meetings are turning into arguing and yelling and shouting matches. And if you don't believe me, well, I'm sorry, you need to go attend some church meetings, because I guarantee you it's happening. In fact, I know for a fact that at least in one church, it did happen. People got furious. People got upset. I've even heard a story about a church where inside the church, when they were still having, they shut down because of the COVID-19 situation. But while they were opened back up, there was a woman in the church who would, when people came in, would offer them masks. And this man started in the sanctuary, started yelling at the woman, I'm not going to wear any mask. I'm not going to wear any mask. This whole thing is stupid. And start yelling at a woman inside the church, inside the sanctuary, because of a mask. There are pastors who are probably at their wits' end with all of this, because everyone thinks they know what to do. Everyone thinks that their opinion is right. Everyone thinks everyone else's opinion is wrong. And instead of like, hey guys, can we lay aside what we may think is our personal freedom and give that up so that we don't cause anyone to stumble, so that we don't hurt anyone, that we don't infect anyone, that we don't get anyone else sick? Can we try to be salt? Can we try to be a light? Can we try to be a good witness? No. The whole thing is turning into arguments, fighting, political, trying to make a point. Like it's like a teenager trying to, like, here's what we need you to do. And the teenager purposely does the opposite to try to make a point. Well, when Christian adults start acting like that, that's a sign of spiritual problems. And let me say this, and I know we need to get to the actual sermon, but this is a very important point. All right. And this could obviously be like a separate podcast episode, but this is important. I think one of the things that we're going to look back and see, and I know I've stated this in different ways, but I think the way Christians are handling themselves in regards to COVID-19, I think what this is all demonstrating is the lack of true spirituality and true biblical wisdom that what this whole COVID-19 situation is revealing is just how unspiritual we are, how unbiblical we are, how fleshly we are, how selfish we are, how narcissistic we are, that we in many cases don't care about anything else about other than ourselves and making a point, and how politically hijacked we have become. And that's sad. When pastors basically have to do videos saying, hey guys, come on, before you go to church, come on, let's lay all of that aside. Like, why do you shouldn't have to tell Christians that. Christians should just come to church and go, whatever, pastor, you need me to do, I'm willing to do. Whatever I can do to be helpful, whatever I can do to make church better. See, but that's me being naive. What I have learned all of these years is that sadly, Christians come to church and it's about them. You've got to do it their way. You've got to preach their way. You've got to conduct the service their way. And if it's not their way, they're going to hit the highway to go find a church that will give it to them their way. And if they won't, they'll go start a church so that they can do it their way until other people come to that church who wants it a different way. And then they'll go start a church so that they can have it their way, because we have a bunch of Christians who want it their way. So everyone thinks that, oh, we should have church. You shouldn't have church. You should wear a mask. You shouldn't wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. You should do this. We should shake hands and hug because we're not going to live by fear. We're going to live by faith. And just like it turns into everyone, with their slogans, their philosophies, and instead of saying, let's lay aside personal preferences, personal ideas, and let's lay these down so that we can do everything in our power to be a witness, to show love, to show compassion, to try to protect, that we don't become spreaders of this, and that we can do everything to ensure that those who may have underlying health issues are protected. I mean, those who are older, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. But I bet you there are churches all over the place, pastors who are just fed up with fighting about this. And I'm just tired of watching it play out in culture. I've told you the story the other day. I went to the convenience store. I needed to go to the convenience store to get something. And I pulled up and I parked my car. And as I'm walking to the front of the convenience store, there's a guy standing in the convenience store with a mask, waving it over his head. This is all a hoax. This is garbage. I'm not going to wear one of these stupid things, just yelling in front of a convenience store. And he's just looking at the guy going, really? Really? Of all the issues going on in the world, you're going to stand here and scream because you're supposed to wear a mask when you walk into the store? Oh, I know it just requires so much effort to put a mask on, walk into the convenience store, get what you need, and then walk out, get back in your car, and take the mask off. I know it's the end of the world. And then people are like, it's a slippery slope, and we're all going to lose our freedoms, and we're going to all be taken to, concentration camps, and this is the end of the world. And it's like, come on. But there you have it. Before we can even get to church, we have to be told that. And it just seems like this is like for elementary kids at elementary school. Hey, guys, can we all just get along? Can we just set aside our differences? And I bet you, and trust me, that's the nice way of saying it. Like that, that's what, when a pastor has to say something like that, trust me, the reality behind that is much uglier than the reality put forth. And I hate that that's the fact, but I can almost guarantee you that's the way that is. So we haven't even got to the sermon yet, and we've been 32 minutes. So clearly, I don't know if we're going to be able to finish this sermon, but let's just jump in. That's okay. There's a lot of issues to discuss, but that's why we do this. See, taking a trip to this church, and we've already discovered, man, they're dealing with the COVID-19 situation, and we're getting to hear how they're trying to handle it. And in a lot of ways, it's like, hey, if you're not happy with the way we're doing things, if you don't like the way we're doing things, you think we need to do things differently, just stay home. Just stay home. That says a lot. In other words, don't come here and cause trouble. Don't come here with your, eye-rolling, attitude. Just stay at home. That's saying a lot for a big mega church to say that, because typically they don't want to say anything to offend anyone. But if you kind of break that down get right to the point and not sugarcoat it. Hey, if you've got a problem with how we do things, you just stay home, because the last thing we need is problems. And like I said, I can tell you the story. Big church, older woman just simply handing out masks, saying, here, you don't have to take one, but offering it. And then a man gets mad and starts yelling at an older woman inside the sanctuary of a church. He's there to worship, but before he can worship, he has to yell at an older woman because she offered him to wear a mask. Yeah. And we think that the church is the one influencing the culture. Give me a break. That's the culture influencing the church. All right, let's get to their sermon. Let's see what happened when the preaching actually started. Here we go. I don't know what to expect. I have no idea, but here we go. This one's been interesting so far. Let's see. I bet you it's going to get far more interesting. Let's see what happens.
Well, good morning. Good to see you all here. It's been a while. Well, for me. Anyway, we are going to worship our awesome God. Are you guys ready? Please stand with us.
All right, so the audio here is their worship. Let me turn this down. We're not going to listen to their worship. I'm curious how long their worship lasts. I'm fast forwarding.
Very, very good athlete. I was not like that. But we're also going to look at so much as
Back it up.
outside.
Okay, here we go. We'll just kind of jump in right here. We'll jump in right here. You know, we could take a journey to churches and just listen to their worship services and probably could say a lot about them. You know, been lots of arguments in the history of Christianity about music in the church and how should it be done, and, you know, and a lot about how the lyrics are today and a lot of the modern day church music and how just, yeah. So that would be an interesting. I don't know if that would be interesting. I think that point it would just get frustrating. And I've said this before. Look, the main thing to do for a church, you should not pick a church based off music, and you should not reject a church based off music. What you need to be focused on is the doctrine of the church, the theology of the church, the preaching of the church, how in depth it is, the content of that teaching. Are they willing to struggle through deep theological issues? Do they worry about doctrine, theology, church history? Do they handle the text correctly? You know, what is their hermeneutic? You need to be asking bigger questions than music, but so many people base it off music. They like the music or they hate the music, and then they decide to come or go based off that. And to be fair, though, some churches, the worship service, the music service alone is almost an hour. Some of these big churches, the praise and worship goes on 40, 45 minutes, and then you get the sermon. And then it has been interesting. Many times the sermon is still 40, 45 minutes long. So you're going to be there a long time, and if at least half of that is all music, well, then I see why that's going to greatly influence where you go. So, you know, how some churches emphasize music, some churches don't. I think most of the big churches do emphasize music, and it seems to be a key factor in a lot of this. All right, let's get back in. Let's jump again.
Thank you so much for the invitation into sanctuary, into the safe place where all the noise of the world has to stay outside. We get to just be with you, with each other, where we get to have our souls fed. Thank you for creating us with hungry souls and for ordering us up some really good soul food. I pray that today, as your timeless word continues to speak into our hearts and lives, that you would tune us up to be the best version of you during a hard time that we could possibly be. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Go ahead and take a seat if you would. You know, I'm really grateful for King Hezekiah.
Now, to be fair here, this is interesting. Their worship was 20 minutes long, and their sermon is 40 minutes. So they're putting the emphasis on the preaching, not the singing. That goes against. So either it's what I've seen in many of the churches today, the music either has more of an emphasis than the preaching. It's either more, equal. Less than is not always the common theme. Here it's less than, which is an interesting Just an interesting thing to note. I would obviously, my preference is the preaching should be the dominant, most important part of it, because everyone thinks worship is the singing and then there's the preaching, but preaching is a part of worship. We're hearing from God. In song, we sing to God, and preaching, we hear from God, from his word. So that is a form of worship, how we listen to God's word and then how we respond to that word. All right, let's see where he's going to go.
I'm extremely grateful for the way that God's word, as spoken through Hezekiah in the Old Testament, continues to deliver today. I really love that. And I think the thing that I like about him so much is, you know, in my opinion, he was the best king during the worst time. He was. And when you read about his life from the beginning, what he went through, the leadership decisions that he had to make, and then how he ended his life, and he wasn't perfect. He made some bad decisions, but at the end of the day, who he was at the beginning remained the same. And I am really grateful for that. I think there's something for us in that. Here's the story of Hezekiah, who he is, his character. And I'm just going to read it slow and just look at these words with me in 2 Kings 18. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He held fast to the Lord. He did not stop following him. He kept the commands that the Lord had given Moses, and the Lord was with him. He was successful in whatever he undertook. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. Put that on my gravestone, man. I mean, is that just amazing? And what I particularly love is how relevant all of this is today, not just in what he went through, and we're going to rehash a little bit of that together, what Hezekiah went through, but we're also going to look at the songs that were written that came together to remind us that this is an expedition and it's a wild expedition. And we need to be reminded of who we are and whose we are along the way. When it came to high school sports, I was nothing like my friend Gary Molinar. Gary Molinar was an amazing athlete. And the only reason I know that is he tells me that every week. And, sorry, I'm going to pay. Am I going to pay? I'm going to pay. Oh, yeah, I will pay. But seriously, though, he was a very, very good athlete. I was not like that. I wanted to be so bad. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna run cross country. And so I went out for the cross country team one day. And if you know Bend, Oregon very well, which is where I grew up, you left the high school with a group of real runners, and you went through these neighborhoods, and then you came around Pilot Butte, which is the butte right on the edge of town, on the east side of town, and you came back. So somewhere around block 8 or 10 before I ever got to the butte, I started getting a side ache. Now here's I always got side aches. Why did I think that I could run cross country without a side ache? So this was arguably one of the most frustrating days in the cross-country coach's life because he couldn't get, home to dinner till all of the runners came back. And about halfway through, I was just thinking, what was I thinking? That's what I was thinking. What was I thinking about this? What is the reward here? There's no dog chasing me. Why would I run like this? And I just hurt. So I walked the rest of the way. It's about a 7-mile run. Just I guess no big deal for real athletes. So that didn't work for me. That was my one-day outing. Basketball, I loved basketball. I wanted to play basketball so bad. when I was little, I actually figured out, even before I was a teenager, how to form up a pad in my old dirt driveway.
All right, now I gotta stop right here, or not stop right here, but I gotta interrupt right here. I get to throw in some thoughts here, just from a pastor perspective. Now, I don't know how people in the pew would be viewing the sermon at this point. I think it's interesting how a pastor hears a sermon and how maybe a non-pastor hears a sermon. We hear it in two different ways. What I'm thinking here is, okay, he gave us what the subject of the sermon is. King Hezekiah, right? It's about King Hezekiah. He kind of briefly read those verses. I'm assuming they showed them on a screen. He didn't even give you he gave you the chapter, 2 Kings 18. He didn't give you the actual verse number. That drives me crazy when pastors do that. Attention, pastors. If you're going to put your sermons online, give me the chapter, the book, the chapter, and the verses. If you want people to study the Bible and you're going to be preaching from the Bible, give me where I can look it up for myself, because I'm going to look it up for myself. I'm going to know exactly what you read. I'm going to look at the context because I want to know if you're giving me the truth. Give me the scripture reference. It's so common now. Oh, just make a reference to a scripture and no, give me where it is. And so if you don't know where that it was, I looked it up. 2 Kings chapter 18. He started reading in verse 5. All right. We have King Hezekiah, a description of him starting in chapter 18, verse 1. We find out, let's see here, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign. That's verse 2. He reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was, we got the mother's name, she's the daughter of. Okay, then in verse 3, he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father did. Now, please note, obviously, David didn't do everything right. So sometimes when it gives this description, sometimes we read these descriptions like, oh, they were perfect. Well, David wasn't perfect. Okay, so, all right. He removed the high places and brake the images and cut down the groves. He brake in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made, for unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it. Wow, that's now 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 4. There could be an interesting sermon right there. But then he started reading in verse 5. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any that were before him, for he clave to the Lord. He departed not from the following him, but kept his commandments, which the Lord commanded Moses, and the Lord was with him, and he prospered whithersoever he went forth, and he rebelled against the king of Assyria and served him not. So he read 2 Kings chapter 18, verses 5 through 7. That's what he read. So he gives us the subject, and then he stops and pivots from the subject to these personal stories about him not being a good athlete. Now, what I'm thinking is, okay, how is he going to pull these two things together? Like, how does the subject, King Hezekiah, relate to these stories? Now, to be fair, pastors are bad at this. Sometimes we know, okay, I'm going to be preaching this, and you want to offer some kind of illustration, some kind of story. Maybe you're hoping that it'll be kind of humorous and you'll get some laughs and people will laugh and you can kind of get people involved. That's a very common technique. You want to kind of break the ice. You want to just try to get people involved. And sometimes telling a story, a personal story, can pull people in. Hopefully they'll find it humorous and hopefully they'll think it's interesting. Now, But then what can happen is you try that, but then ultimately the story didn't really tie into the actual message. So King Hezekiah, this awesome king, this pastor who's not very good at sports. All right. How do these fit together? What's the purpose of the thing? I like when I listen to a sermon, how it's organized, how it's put together. Now, and again, I'm not going to look, the goal here is not to criticize people's preaching styles. That is the last thing you want to do. And here's the reason why. Every pastor is different. They have to preach in their style. They should not try to copy other people's styles. They should not try to be, don't try to be MacArthur. Don't try to be, any other pastor. Be yourself. All right. I could just name all kinds of famous pastors. Just be you. Allow your style to develop. And people are going to either like it or people are going to hate it. But if you run around trying to fix your style to please people, man, who wants to do that? Who wants to do that? So I'm not criticizing it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what's the structure here? What's the end game? So he wasn't good at running, didn't like to run. Now he's moved to basketball. So he's expanding this idea. The theme of his story is he wasn't good at sports. King Hezekiah, the pastor, wasn't good at sports. You see what I'm waiting for? The connection. Now, sometimes I've been telling a story and I'll start thinking to myself in the middle of telling the story, how does this really connect to my sermon? Like in your mind, you think, man, this connects really well. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the story, you're like, I really don't know how this connects or why I'm even telling this. So we'll see. I'm assuming he has a plan here, but that's what I'm looking for.
In the detached garage back in the 70s, and actually in the 60s. It's hard to remember. If you lived through the 60s, you don't remember a lot, most of us. But I put up a basket, on the garage. I didn't even know how high up it was. And I had to do all the stuff myself. And, so it was all about shooting and trying to get it right. And just, I was just my own teacher, which was not great because I didn't know much. Then it was time to go out for basketball. So I went out for basketball, practice to see if I could make the team. And we started what we called gut busters, running gut busters. Because I don't know if you know this, but basketball is a running game. Yeah. Some of them, some guys call them lines. So you all start off and you run to the first free throw line, then the half court line, then the next free throw line over there, and then all the way, and then back. And you have to touch the line every time. Well, if Satan ever developed an exercise, that was it, man. Because here's what happened. Not only did I run out of air, but I got side aches. Man, so that didn't work out for me. So then I thought, you know what? The football coach was working me over, and I liked football. So I tried out for football, and
So we've gone from cross-country running, basketball, to football. Now, the one thing he keeps repeating is this side ache. This side ache. He keeps repeating that. Now, I'm listening, looking for the structure. So is he going to say Hezekiah had a side ache? Is that going to be the connection? That Hezekiah had a side ache? So what was his side? Is that what is that? Like, I'm just trying to put it together right now to see where he's going. Now this whole thing with Hezekiah, there's a lot there to make sure people understand. This is the divided kingdom. Yeah, these many tribes went north. This many tribes went south. Yeah, there's a lot of historical context you may want to provide here. Maybe they've been in 2 Kings, so he doesn't need to provide all of that historical context. I don't know. He's got 34 minutes left. And we're still now we're going to hear the football story. Let's see where this goes.
I went to football practice and I thought how great it was because the summer that preceding my football career in high school, again one day, that summer I was singing with the Continental Singers. And that means I missed all the daily doubles where you go out and all summer long you are working a fitness program. Well, how smart was I? I missed all that, and then went out to football practice and we lined up to do tackling drills and a guy named Joe knocked me out and I got up and threw up and went back in the locker room early. So that was my athletic career. And I wanted my...
Well, I was thinking we were going to get another side ache story because he kept emphasizing that, but no, not. So, all right. So I'm not really knowing what... that's his athletic career. Maybe he's going to try to show that his athletic career wasn't successful versus the success of Hezekiah. I don't know. I'm grasping for straws here, trying to figure out how this relates. But we'll give him the chance. Let's see where he goes. And I know most people probably don't listen to a sermon that way, but I'm sitting there trying to figure out the structure. So let's see.
Athletic career to define me. The big obstacle for me in the athletic career program was the word pain. I didn't do well with it. I wanted the prize without the pain. And I thought that the pain of being me would just go away. That pain. The pain of how I saw myself because of my broken self. So I thought, either running or on the gridiron or on the basketball court, somehow the pain of who I was would go away. And then to just frost that cake, I would get a Letterman's jacket. And I wanted a Letterman's jacket really bad. I almost bought one from a guy. That's how bad I wanted one. But he had a wrestler thing, and everyone knew I didn't wrestle. So,
all right. So now, the transition seems to be that he endured pain, like the athletic pursuits had pain in it, but he was trying to do that to overcome another pain, and that's the pain of who he was and the pain of self, and he was trying to cover that pain with some kind of athletic accomplishment. All right, so I have a feeling that the story of Hezekiah is quickly becoming the story of us, and this is a major hermeneutical things that churches do. You just take a text and you just boom. Forget Hezekiah. We get put into the text. I don't know where he's going, but man, that seems where it's going. So this is about our personal pain, maybe. So how does this relate to Hezekiah? Did he experience some kind of pain? Let's see.
The problem was I just wasn't willing to persist. My persistent program was not deeply embedded in my life. Persisting was not a part of my dream. The best hard choice for me then became stage. I got on the stage. So I did a lot of acting. I played musical instrument. I sang, and inevitably ended up here on the stage. Still painful. Still a great call to persist. So whether you're on the stage, you're off the stage, you think you're important, you think you're not important, you're an athlete, you're not an athlete, life is painful. You've heard me say it over and over again. In all of our lifetime, as a whole, life has never felt as painful as it is right now.
So is he developing that his thesis is that life is painful and we need persistence to make it through it? And he is an illustration of not having persistence through pain. Is that the thesis here? Now, if that's the thesis, life is painful, you need persistence to make it through it. We're still trying to figure out how Hezekiah comes into play in this. Right? So clearly he's going to go back to 2 Kings and pull some things from that to give us principles about persistence through pain. That seems to be the way this is being set up. All right, let's see if I'm right.
And for a lot of us, we haven't figured out that there's not a choice that's not painful, and then there's the painful choice. All of life is painful. And once you figure that out, it's like raining in the Seattle area, in Western Washington. You don't go, oh my gosh, it's raining. No, it rains here. It rains. In fact, does anyone have any idea when summer's going to happen this year? I'm just curious. Is there any possibility that today's summer? The problem with summer today is it ends tomorrow, right? Oh my goodness. So when you realize that pain it's as common as rain in Western Washington, and you go, okay, then it's not about avoiding pain, it's about picking my pain. For Hezekiah, the best hard choice for him was to stay on the God path and against all of the voices, persist. And he had two big scary choices in his life, and it was the God path or the power of the culture. And the power of the culture was powerful, really powerful, because the Assyrian regime and the Assyrian king, they were bad folks. So number one, if you're taking notes, one of the great idioms of the persistent pilgrim is pick your pain, because you are always picking your pain. The truth is, life is often about the hard choices, and sometimes all you have is an option of making one of the best bad choices of the three that are in front of you, because life is hard. It's very difficult. Hezekiah, he's remembering back now as he's writing this song in Psalm 129. He's thinking back as they're getting closer to the holy city on Mount Zion. He's thinking, man alive, this was rough. And so in the song that he wrote that they would sing as they're marching up to the holy city, he wants this song in.
Okay, whoa, that was, okay, I didn't even know we were in Psalm 129. Like, that was weird. Like, okay, wait, so he's in 2 Kings, and now we're in Psalm 129. So is this an actual study of Psalm 129? I must have missed something somewhere. I'm really confused. Now, I've got to look at something. Give me a second. I'm going to grab what books I have here next to me. All right, Psalm, he said 129, Psalm 129. Let me look here. Psalm 129. All right, now here, according to mine, Psalm 129, the author and occasion are not specified. He just made it sound like Hezekiah wrote Psalm 129. I am baffled here and perplexed. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? We have a reading from 2 Kings 18, if I remember correctly. Okay, verse 5 through 7. Then we have these stories about sports. Then we transition into pain and persistence. And then the next thing you know, we're in Psalm 129 being told King Hezekiah wrote this song. Let me do this. Let me see here. Let me do. I missed something. I am baffled here. Okay, give me a second here. But see, I told you these. You never know what's going to happen when you do this. Let me do Psalm 129. Psalm 129. Psalm 129. All right, let me see if I have anything here. Okay, I was seeing if something jumped out that had Hezekiah connected to it. Let's go Psalm 29. I'll go verse 1. Let me see here. I'm going to get to Bible Hub. Yeah, here's Bible Hub. All right. Psalm 129. Okay. Where did he get? I'm not getting where he gets King Hezekiah. Let's do this. Let's go Psalm 129. And see, and pastors, I know here's what I guess this is why church was always hard for me. This is why church was probably always hard for me. A lot of people will just sit there. See, I would be going, wait. How did we get to King? Where's King? Like, I wouldn't raise my hand or ever speak up because, that's disrespectful. But trust me, when this sermon was over, I'd be right there at the pastor going, wait, what is going on? And if I couldn't talk to him, I'd be calling him on Monday going, what was happening? All right, let's see here. King Hezekiah. All right, here. I am not getting this. Okay, hang on. All right, so Psalm 129 is one of the songs of degrees, which is labeled. It's listed as that. Okay. There is no difference of opinion as to the meaning of the word degrees. It means steps, but interpretations of the use of the word in this connection manifest a great difference and discordance. Some think these psalms were so called because they were sung on the 15 steps of the temple, but there's no evidence that there were 15 steps. Okay, I'm trying to find King Hezekiah here. All right, here we go. More than 250 years ago, the interpretation was suggested. Okay. On recovery from his sickness, Hezekiah said, Jehovah was ready to save me. Therefore, we will sing my songs to the stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of Jehovah. That seems to be from Isaiah 38:20. All right. More than 250 years ago, this interpretation was suggested in a passing remark by Dr. John Lightfoot in his work on Old Testament chronology. But so far as Dr. Thurtle is concerned, it was his own independent discovery. The number of these psalms, 15, adds to its testimony to the certainty of this interpretation. It corresponds with the number of the years, 15, which were added to Hezekiah's life, while the number written by himself, 10, corresponds with the number of the degrees by which the shadow of the sun went backwards. So they're trying to argue that these songs of degrees belong to Hezekiah, I guess. But I don't know at what point. I kind of see what they're trying to do. They're trying to put together a lot of things here. Man, all right. So he didn't. Maybe he explained this in an earlier sermon. Maybe he did. I don't know. We got one commentary saying, "Hey, we don't know the circumstances. We don't know the author." I got another one with this elaborate scheme of trying to connect this to Hezekiah. We don't have. Well, see, if you say all the songs of degrees are of Solomon or of Hezekiah, you've got a problem, because look at this. Psalm 122, a song of degrees of David. Psalm 124, a song of degrees of David. Psalm 127, a song of degrees for Solomon. Psalm 131, a song of degrees of David. Psalm 133, a song of degrees of David. So how do you just jump into 129 and said Hezekiah? Wow. Okay. Maybe he's going to explain it, but he just threw in Psalm 129 there. Like we're all supposed to know where he's going. I didn't hear. I mean, we went from the song service right into the message. If I missed something, please email me and let me know that I'm making a bigger deal out of this. I am just really baffled at what just happened. And he's not explaining this at all. So maybe he explained it earlier on, but this is where you have to do a little bit of a review in your sermon, right? Especially if you're posting them online. If you're posting them online, you got to do some kind of review for continuity's sake, right? Let's see where this goes. I don't know how far we're going to get, but at this point, I'm committed to seeing this through. So let's continue.
Asserted as they're getting closer, because he wants them to know life is tough. Life's about tough choices, and tough choices make for a lot of pain. They just do most of the time. And he wants them to know that persistence pays for the one who follows in the God path. And so he writes this song as they're ascending up the hill to the holy city, and it starts off like this. They have greatly oppressed me from my youth. Let Israel say, they have greatly oppressed me from my youth, but they have not gained the victory over me. So that's how the song, what we're calling a signpost for the expedition, starts out. This guy, Hezekiah, he made king at 25. 25 years old. He's the king of Judah, which is the lower part after the big family split. You had Israel, the 10 brothers up north, and then you had Judah, which was the lower portion, and that's where he was king. 25 years old. And right, this dude like ran into his kingship like his hair was on fire. He did. He ran into it like a special teams receiver, Just grab that ball and run into people. And that's the painful path he took. He could have gone after the path of his father, who was a really bad, vile, horrible dude. Murdered his own son, Ahab. Murdered his own kid, King Ahab. Or he could fly in the face of the culture which was being dominated. It was moving like an ocean wave across Judah, devastating all of the cities, the Assyrian wave, the Assyrian terrorists. And the last city to take was Jerusalem. And so he had to decide, who am I going to be? Who am I going to be in this story when the culture has tons of power and it's just so negative and it's just getting bombarding me? It's just, it's horrible. Who's it going to be? So he decided, I'm going to be the guy who can go to sleep at night knowing I did the right thing, and I'm going to turn loose to the results. Great idiom. He tore down the Canaanite idols, and he worshiped God, and it hit the fan. It hit the fan because that flew in the face of the big power culture, right, of the Assyrian king. And so in fear and great opposition now, Hezekiah, who is occupying and leading the last holdout city, where, God didn't show up for all those other cities, like 64, 65 other cities that were taken and decimated, and cruel, horrible things happened at the hands of the Assyrians. Now this is the last one. I mean, how would you feel in all of that? Now the question is, will God show up for this city? It doesn't seem like he showed up for those other cities. Why didn't God show up for the other cities? What did I do wrong? What do I have to do to perform better? What's going to happen for me? But here's the deal. God was his last resort. God works really well when you throw up your hands and go, I've had it. I'm done. It's yours, God. It's like, thanks. I've been waiting for that, right? God was his last resort. And here's how it went. The Assyrian king didn't even show up to terrorize Hezekiah and the people in Jerusalem. Instead, he sent a representative that just had this big, huge speech that struck fear in everybody's hearts that heard, in everybody's mind as they listened, and even in Hezekiah's when he started thinking about all that was going on. So I like the way that Eugene Peterson describes what went on with Hezekiah once the Assyrian rep showed up and terrorized him. It says in 2 Kings 19, again, this is out of the Message, when Hezekiah heard all of the rants and all the stuff that
Okay, while that's playing, I'm just sitting here grabbing every book I can find, and I can't find anything. Here's another commentary. This psalm is entitled merely A Song of Degrees, speaking of Psalm 129. Its author is unknown, and the occasion in which it was written cannot now be ascertained. It is a psalm which would be applicable to many periods of the Jewish history, and it is not of such a nature that it can be certain. It can be with certainty be referred to any one of them. There is nothing in which would forbid us to suppose that it was composed on the return from Babylonian exile. Now he's going on turning Psalm 129 into some kind of thing about Hezekiah. I am completely baffled and lost here. I am completely baffled. I don't even understand what's going on. I truly don't. And this raises a very important question. Why is this guy the pastor of a church that has 17,000 people attending weekly? What is it about him that is drawing that so many? Sometimes I'm baffled by why churches are so big. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's not a horrible speaker. He's not a great speaker. There's nothing unique about him. There's nothing dramatic about him. I'm completely lost. If I was sitting in the pew right now, I'd just be looking around like I'd want to say, does anybody know what's going on? Hezekiah, Psalm 129, This is all about, he's using King Hezekiah as the example, and I don't understand how King Hezekiah is attached to Psalm 129. And I'm looking at all these sources, and I'm not getting it. There's one that tries to make an elaborate, like King Hezekiah is somehow connected to all of the Song of Degrees, but that's like, we'd have to, man, I am so confused. I am so confused. Well, we'll give this a little bit more time. This may be the example of like what, like, can you just say anything from the pulpit? Like, does anyone at all pay any attention? Like, I am really confused here. So let's see if he continues with the Hezekiah thing. We're not going to be able to finish this sermon, but man, this is weird. This really is. All right, let's continue.
The rep from the Assyrian king was thrown out there. He ripped his robes off, tore them apart. He put on the traditional mourning burlap, covered himself up to grieve and mourn. And then he went into the temple of God. He went to church in his grief clothes. And he sent Eliakim, who was in the charge of the palace, Shebna, the secretary, and the senior priests, all of them dressed in rough burlap, all of them dressed up in their mourning clothes, to go to the God guy, the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amoz. And they said to Isaiah, we got a message from the king. This is a black day, a terrible day, doomsday. Anyone ever said that to you recently? It's doomsday. And then this line is huge, maybe because we just had a baby born into our family recently. Babies poised to be born, no strength to birth them. Patty and I were talking about the other day of all of the babies born into this time that won't know anything else other than what happens out of this time moving forward. We had a picture of one of our granddaughters and
does anyone have any idea what is going on? I'm still trying to figure out Psalm 120. What is he? I am so lost. Like I am not trying to be overcritical. I am not trying to be overcritical. I am perplexed. I am lost here. I am confused here. I do not know what's going on. And this is just bizarre that this is the pastor of one of the most influential churches. How is this influential? I don't even know what this is. Like, we could understand T.D. Jakes. Now, his preaching was a train wreck, but at least there was some kind of continuity to what he was doing. We can understand John Hagee with his emphasis on Bible prophecy. We could see that. Skip Heitzig from Calvary Chapel in Albuquerque. We could see that a little bit. He at least handled the text. I don't even know what text we're in anymore. I don't even understand. Are we in Psalm 129? Well, I don't even know where we are. Now, and again, to be fair, I may have missed something because I was sitting here. I got books everywhere. I ran to the church library. I got stuff scattered everywhere trying to figure out this Hezekiah thing. I'm trying to figure, is this a sermon about Hezekiah? Is this a sermon about Psalm 129? I don't know what the sermon is. I understand the thesis. There's pain in life and we need persistence. Man. Okay, this is crazy. All right, let's continue.
Mom, she's 3 years old and she has a mask on her face, right? And it's just it's one of those times, but this is even worse. This is way worse. So here's the message. He continues on, the message that Hezekiah wants his boys to deliver to the God guy, Isaiah. Maybe God, your God, has been listening to the blasphemous speech of Rabshakeh, who was sent by the king of Assyria, his master, to humiliate the living God. Maybe Isaiah, maybe God, your God, won't let him get by with such talk. And maybe you will lift up prayers for what's left of these people. Do you just feel the dismay? Do you feel how melancholy he is here? How he's just shot. He's just devastated, man. And then they said, that's the message King Hezekiah wanted you to hear. So Isaiah answers, you tell Hezekiah, you tell the boy, the main man, your master, not boy, I don't think he'd say that. You tell your master God's word. Here it is. Don't be at all concerned about what you've heard from the king of Assyria's boot-licking errand boys. These outrageous...
I don't know where he is. He must be in Isaiah now. I am so confused. I'm looking here at 2 Kings 18. And it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah. Okay, and the king of Syria did carry away Israel unto Assyria. Now the 14th year of Hezekiah did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fenced cities. King gave him silver. I'm looking here. I'm just trying to go through this. I do not know what's going on. He had to go to Isaiah. I must have missed when I was looking everything up. I must have missed this. This is all over the place. Like the Psalm 129 thing. I'm still trying to figure out the Psalm 129 thing. I guess now he's in Isaiah. Oh man. All right, let's try to wrap this up.
Blasphemies. Here's what I'm going to do. God's saying, I'm going to afflict him with self-doubt. He's going to hear a rumor and, frightened for his life, retreat to his own country. And once there, I'll see to it that he gets killed. That's word right there. Now, let me just say, it's hard for me to pass by 3 little pieces here that you need to hear today for you. God says, I'm going to afflict him with self-doubt. That means there is no room for us who are Christ followers to have self-doubt. Because he who lives in me is greater than he who lives in the world. You and I, you know who we are? Children of the King. There's no place for self-doubt. And then he's going to hear a rumor. Listen, don't pander in speculation during these days. We have an anchor, steadfast and sure. We have a rock. We don't pander in speculation.
He may have been in Isaiah 37. That's a cross-reference. I don't know what is going on, man. Okay, and I apologize because I was still trying to figure out the Psalm 129 thing. And he's left the story really quick, and now he's turning it into principles for us. Man, there's just so much going on here. Look, first of all, when we look at these stories in the Old Testament, make sure we remember the very simple principle. Is it simply describing what happened, or is it prescribing some principle that we are to follow or that is applicable to us? Sometimes it's simply describing what happened in a historical context, has nothing to do with us. This is so weird. All right, let's continue.
We don't have to pander in speculation. We don't have to listen to rumors and start to give birth to fear. We don't have to do that. I mean, notice this is what God's doing to punish this guy and get him ready to die. Self-doubt, listening to rumors, and then frightened for his life. That's not who we are. You should be happy about that. Pretend this is a Seahawk game. Okay.
How about we pretend this is a sermon and you tell me what in the world you're doing? Okay? Like he's just giving us all these principles now. Well, wait a minute. Wait. Does this refer to King Hezekiah and him, or does this refer to Isaiah? Does this refer... What are you talking about? Like, I don't understand what is going on. And he's not giving scripture references so that I can even go back and look any of this up. I don't even know. I feel like I need to back up and figure out where I lost. Okay, here it is. Isaiah 37:7. Here's where he's referring to. All right. And so Isaiah said unto them, thus shall you say unto your master, thus saith the Lord, be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherewith the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him. He shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. This is punishment upon this king. Now, here's the thing. What does this have to do with us? Like, how are you applying this to us? So he's using Isaiah 37. He's using Isaiah 37 verse 7, taking what God is going to do to, which king is this? He sins, then he said unto him, thus saith Hezekiah, the day is a day of trouble, and of rebuke and of blasphemy, for the children come to birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria, the master, hath sent to reproach the living God. All right. So I guess it's the king of Assyria, and the words of Rabshakeh. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So this is what God is going to do. This is just a mess. Like, this is, whoa. Okay. But Isaiah 37 is where he was. And I apologize if I missed that, because I was still trying to figure out the Psalm 129. He went to Psalm 129, and then I guess immediately jumped to Isaiah 37. And he was in 2 Kings. This is just weird.
Hey. The reason that Hezekiah was so great as a king is because he chose the persistent path to a place where he could even hear that. And let me just tell you, if when Hezekiah heard that, he went, yeah, right. That does not stop your God from being who he is and doing what he says. Because if the bad guys haven't won, then I can tell you right now, God has. He surrendered to the right power. He surrendered to the God that he said he was committed to. He surrendered. So, they have greatly oppressed me from my youth. It's been like this, but they have not gained victory over me. Number 2 in your notes, surrender always precedes commitment. It does. You can say you're committed, but you're not committed if you haven't surrendered. Then the song goes on, and he says, and this is like a dark song. Remember, the last song was all of the blessing. This is like, look, man, it's painful, but we've won the day. The next one, plowmen have plowed my back and made their furrows long. Now, this is a
Okay, no, wait a minute. Now he's back in Psalm 129. He's jumping all over the place, and he's not even giving references. I have to believe that they're putting references on the screen. I have to believe that. But if you're going to put your sermons online, like, I am lost here. So now the song has to be Psalm 129, and it sounds like that they're in a series studying the songs, the Psalms of Ascent or the Songs of Degrees. That seems to be, and clearly he's gone with an interpretive. I don't know if he believes that Hezekiah wrote all of these, or if he just wrote Psalm 129. I don't know. He's not given me any explanation, but now he's back in Psalm 129, and he just read verse 3. The plowers plowed upon my back, they made long their furrows. Now he is referencing this back to Hezekiah, but I can't find a commentary that does that. So, this is epic. This is epic, and this is so bad. This is so bad. This is horrible. This is horrible. How does 17,000 people tune in for this? I mean, come on. The average layperson could put together a better message than this. I don't even know what's going on. He's all over the place. He's just he's got these principles. I don't even know how they relate to the text. He's taking a historical narrative that describes what happened, and he's taking it and somehow taking principles to prescribe to us. that's somehow applicable to us that he claims is coming from the text? That, like, I don't even get this.
Metaphor of the heart right here. The enemy will plow deep wounds in my heart. But if I stay surrendered and stand on my commitment, those wounds will define the best of me.
So we're to interpret Psalm 129 verse 3 that the plowers plowed upon my back. That what we're supposed to understand by that is that the plowers plowed and hurt my heart? Is that really what I'm getting here? Man, I am so perplexed here. Let me look at verse 3. The plowers plowed upon my back. The comparison here is undoubtedly taken from the plowing of land. And the idea is that the sufferings which they endured were such as would be well represented by a plow passing over a field, tearing up the sod, piercing deep and producing long rows or furrows. The direct allusion would seem to be stripes inflicted on the back, as if a plow had been made to pass over it. And the meaning is that they had been subjected to suffering as slaves or criminals when the lash cut deep into their flesh. Right? Now here, this is someone saying, look, okay, yes, it is symbolic, but it's symbolic of them as slaves being whipped and beat and actually hit, not just pain in my heart. Like, whoa, man. I'm trying to be calm, All right, here we go. The reason I keep going is I'm trying to give him a chance to pull this all together, right? Like, I'm sitting here criticizing it, and he may turn this around, and I have to go, wow, he's a genius. I was too quick to criticize. I'm trying to give him enough time to fix this.
Not those wounds won't define me. Those wounds will define the best of me. My little sister Joanne Hill pop up here, who's leading Celebrate Recovery, and you heard all of her story and all the stuff that she was in and everything. And you know what? She made a lot of bad decisions, right, Joanne? Amen. And you know what? She leads Celebrate Recovery because all of the wounds that were drugged through her heart like a plow now define the best of her. It's who we are. Yeah, man. There you go. I remember when, I'm going to start preaching any second now. Yeah. So I remember when, after my confession and everything, and my life was just scattered, man. The enemy had just plowed deep furrows into my heart. And I went out with a friend of mine. He invited me to lunch, a guy I admired a lot.
Please note how he just ripped Psalm 129 verse 3 and then applied it to himself. He just ripped it out of context. When the enemy did plow deep, rows in my heart. Like, whoa, man, we've got to figure out who Psalm 129 is talking about. It's talking about Israel. Right? It's talking about real suffering in a real historical setting. Who gives you permission to rip it out of context and take it to yourself? Like, this could be a sermon used in a hermeneutical class or a preaching class to go, don't do the following. Now it's more stories. I still don't even know what's going on.
His name's Don Post, and head of a big farm bureau insurance area down in Idaho. And we were eating and everything, and he was just checking out how I was and everything. And God had broken me. I'd fallen off the pedestal, and God had let me. And He didn't break me in a bad way. He broke the things in me that needed to be broken, so He could make the things in me that needed to be remade for Him, which is what good fathers do. So as we were in the dialogue, he said, "You know who you remind me of right now?" Because at that point in time, the church was done with me. The denominational execs didn't know what to do with a guy that came and confessed his sin. They were done with me, right? So I was trying to figure out what all to do with my life, and, trying everything, doing all kinds of stuff, working 3 jobs, 18 hours a day sometimes 7 days a week. And he said, Rick, you remind me of a guy that I insured who was really, really out of shape. He was obese, he was just in bad shape. Guy had a heart attack, and then decided he was going to get healthy. Funny how that works, huh? And so he got healthy, became a distance runner, you couldn't even recognize the dude. I mean, he was a picture of health. So he said, he came back to me and said, I want to add some more insurance, some life insurance to my plan. And so he filled out all the stuff, and he was denied. He was denied because of who he was. See? And that's what Don said to me. He said, I think now you're ready. I think now the wounds in your heart are going to define the best of you. It's such a great thing to be a kingdom member because none of the junk gets wasted. That's a happy thought, man. So number 3, in the deep wounds of my heart, I get to question the depth of my commitment. Yeah? I understand what it means to be plowed. I do. So did Hezekiah, and so do most of you. The thing is, to plow is a metaphor. To plow, you need oxen to control the deep furrows and make them straight. You need a harness, you need reins, right? To work those oxen to get deep furrows. Those reins work really, really well in the hands of the enemy. But, the song continues, verse 4, the Lord is righteous, he's cut me free from the reins, free from the cords of the wicked. And that's the metaphor. It's like the enemy is like, come on, and God's like, enough. And he slices through the leather reins. And this is my favorite, like my 3 favorite words, and it's in number 4 in your notes. My favorite words are always, but the Lord. You see that? Verse 4, but the Lord. Oh, it's going to be really bad, but the Lord. And then he says, may all who hate Zion be turned back in shame. See, in verse 5, the king of Assyria did not prevail, and neither will the enemy who has laid out intricate plans for your life. He will not prevail in your story. So make sure you're not acting like he is maybe winning the day, because he's not winning the day. This battle has been fought and won. Number 5 in your notes, with the enemy at the very gates of my life, God is at work, and that battle's his. It's his battle.
All right, we're going to stop there. Man, there's no way he's pulling it all together. He's gone so far down the rabbit hole that there's no returning. He's gone so far off the road. Basically, this is a sermon on Psalm 139. That's what it is. And he's taking Psalm 129. I apologize. Psalm 129. He's going with the assumption that this is a story. This is written by King Hezekiah. He's trying to apply this. He's trying to connect this with the historical account in Isaiah 37 and trying to connect the two. Well, one, he never demonstrated or proved in any way, shape, or form that Psalm 129 was written by Hezekiah. Number 2, he never demonstrated that Psalm 129 is actually referencing things in King Hezekiah's life and not the life of Israel in some way, shape, or form. He's not done any of the work that you're supposed to do to try to even demonstrate it. He's just he took some things from Isaiah 37. He took some things from Psalm 129 to just create these random points about your life and about my life, and just taking, like, somehow these are prescribing how we are to act and what we are to do. Some of those points may be good if they weren't. Here's the thing. Some of the points he may be making may have some validity, may have some truth, and may be powerful. There may be something to some of the points he told you to write down. But here's the issue. He can't pull them from these texts of Scripture in the way that he's doing so. This is one of the most influential churches. I'm baffled by it. Sometimes I listen to a church that's supposedly the most influential, and I'm like, goodness gracious, no wonder they're so influential. I could never speak that well. I could never preach that well. I could never teach that well. They're better than me in every way, shape, and form. They're better than 90% of the churches. I understand. I think their theology is completely whacked. I think they're a bunch of heretics, but at least I can understand it. This, I don't even get it. I don't even understand what's happening. This is some of the worst Bible teaching that I have ever heard. I mean, this is just a train wreck. It's so disorganized. There's flowing from one text to another text. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Now, let me be clear. I've probably preached worse sermons myself, so I'm not saying that I'm the example of how to do it. I'm just saying this is bad. And I wish we could finish it, but we've gone long enough. So I'm just going to say, well, you know what? I don't want to finish it because the longer this goes, the more frustrating I'm going to become. And then I'm not going to be able to offer any good analysis. So you've got something to work on. Psalm 129. You can work on that and try to figure out how in the world Hezekiah is. Not only is Hezekiah the author, this is Hezekiah talking about himself. And then it's supposedly connected to the historical events as recorded in Isaiah 37. Those are a lot of major claims. Claim 1, Hezekiah wrote it. Claim 2, that it's about Hezekiah's life. And claim 3, that what's being described here relates to the historical events of Isaiah 37. Those are major claims about Psalm 129 that so far I can't find anyone to agree with. So there we have it. There we have it. So let me just go back. Man, what a crazy mess. Let's go back. So what we just did is we just visited Christ the King Community Church in Burlington, Washington. That was the lead pastor, Rick Snodgrass. And I'm not going to say anything else. Give me your thoughts. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. I'll stop right there. Wow, what a mess. The next church we're going to be headed to is Eagle Brook Church in Centerville. I think that's Minnesota. Now, this one actually is a denominational church from the Baptist General Conference. Huh? So interesting. So Eagle Brook Church, Centerville, Minnesota. Yeah, they got the picture here is a bunch of children in looks like a lake, and I guess they're all being baptized. Yeah, probably don't have a clue what they're doing or why they're doing it, but that's a whole different story. Okay, but so that's where we're headed next. But we'll get there at some point. All right, I'll stop right there. If you did not hear my teaching on Romans chapter 8, interpreting well-known passages or popular passages in Romans chapter 8, you may want to go listen to that because that when we visited Calvary Chapel in Albuquerque, New Mexico, what Skip Heidzig did to some of those verses in Romans chapter 8, we pulled that sermon back in out of this series just to start trying to examine it. We did not finish it, and tomorrow, probably during the Sunday school hour, we'll try to finish that. So, all right, there you have it. Man, there you go. I'll be switching over to the non-Catholic podcast right now to do a live broadcast because I have a response from a bishop about the Associated Press report that the Catholic Church got $3.4 billion in money from the government that's supposed to go to small businesses to help them with the COVID-19 situation. So I'm going to hear what I'm going to report what the Catholic bishop had to say. I'll be doing that in just a few minutes. That'll be a part of the non-Catholic podcast. You can, subscribe to that podcast wherever podcasts are held, and you can listen to me live via the Spreaker app if you have that. I'll be doing that in just about 5 minutes. All right, I'll stop this. Everyone have a great day. God bless.